case, and then I will uh, leave it up to you to have any Q&A on either Selenium base or UI testing or anything in particular, right? Even the project work that we are going to do. So if you have any questions, you can ask. I'll keep the floor open. Uh, let's see the scenarios. So the one simple scenario that I have created is that we go to.
Hey Sumit, this is
Yep.
Kader. Sorry, just a quick one. Nagendra, do we have a list of people, attended people for certification? Just want to make sure.
Not yet, taken from the attendance gather, but I think for next week we can have it ready.
Okay, okay. So because my designer will be back next week, and I can get all the certificates done at one shot, right? All the three programs, and then we can.
Yeah, got it. I think we can extract it. We have all the information. Let me extract it and share it with you in this week itself. Okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Nagendra.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead, Sumit.
All right. So I'll keep the session short. I will be available online. So I want you to uh, start working on this project, right? And we'll do it live. If you have any facing any blockers or you're not able to understand anything, I will be here resolving those queries. But before we jump into that, I will explain the whole scenario. And second part of today's session will be on Q&A, where again you can ask any question that you have related to UI testing, Selenium base, uh, or Tavern, or anything in general as well, right? So you can ask those questions. So I'll keep the floor open. So the scenario that I've created is that go to Expedia.com, search for. So let me walk through as well, right? So let's go to Expedia.com. .ca, right? And then search for flights. Search for, let's say, Toronto. Oh, okay. I'm not sharing my screen, I guess. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, Sumit.
Okay. So the scenario that I've created is le let's explore Expedia.com, right? Open the Expedia.com website, search for Toronto to New York. So Toronto, if I clear this and enter New York, I'm going to see all airports and then select dates. So I'm going to select dates as 20 October to 23rd October. Click on done, click on search, find the nonstop flights, right? So there are two ways to find the nonstop flights. So the first one is that you select this filter, nonstop. So it will only show nonstop flights. Else, you inspect this element, find the text of, get the text of this particular element, which is number of stops. So if you look here, test number of stops, class number stops. So if it is 0, that means it's a nonstop flight. So you can use this element as well. So traverse through the whole list and find the nonstop flight, and then find the lowest price ticket, right? So the lowest price ticket, again, there are two ways. Either you traverse through the whole list or you sort it by lowest, right? And then fail if the lowest price is lower than your mentioned price. So let's assume the price ticket is 203. So you have to fetch this price as well, where uh, the data test ID you can use, which is listing price dollar. So you can traverse through this whole element list and find the lowest price possible. Uh, so currently it's 203. So if I'm looking for a price range of, let's say, 190, if that and if the price is 203, it will pass. But if my price mentioned that I will mention is 250, if it becomes 203, it will fail. So what it will do is it will give me a detailed view on on a script that I'm expecting as success, in terms of the lowest price should not go below certain amount, right? If it goes below certain amount, I can definitely use that as a baseline or a benchmark to uh, put that in my mention tickets to see where what price it becomes during what time, and to get that information out, right? But I will only be interested in getting a failed result if I want a ticket which currently I'm getting at 250, and I'm running this script every hour to see if that price lowers down, right? I can either put it as a success or a fail. That's up to my use case. But currently, I want to get notified if it fails, right? Or I don't want to. There can be multiple reasons of failure. So that's why I have not put success as a criteria. The failure criteria will let me investigate why that script failed. So if I'm searching for something uh, for my own sake, right? So I want to go from Toronto to New York in October, but I don't want to go to the website again and again and check if that the price is lowering down, right? So that's one use case. The second use case is uh, uh, that my company says that no ticket price can go lower than this price at any given point of time, right? So this is one use case for from the company's perspective. So it basically depends on what you're targeting your use case at, right? So and then run this script on the grid. So we'll create a grid and we'll run this script on that particular grid. We'll schedule this script to run every hour on any CI/CD tool of choice, and then process an alert in Slacks or Teams if the script fails, right? So what exactly it is doing is so let me take the personal point of view, right? Rather than company's point of view. I'm interested in getting a ticket. I'm traveling from Toronto to New York. I'm interested in getting a ticket that will, I don't want to pay uh, more than $190, right? So I will put an alert here. So currently I know the ticket is $203. So I will create a script which will basically do all this automatically through the SeleniumBase framework, and it will only fail if my price lowers than $190, right? I don't care which flight. Just need that flight to be nonstop. That's my first criteria. And my second criteria is that it should have a fare of less than 190. And I'm running that script every hour. So what it will help me achieve from a personal point of view is there might be certain promotions that are running in a particular hour or a particular day. I cannot go every hour or every day on this website to find out the deals. So I let my script run, and it will send me an alert. It will send me an alert whenever the price drops below 190, right? So at that time, I can log in into my account and I can book those tickets, right? So this is one use case from the personal perspective. From the organizational perspective, the same script you will run, and and my company's requirement is that from Toronto to New York, uh, in this particular year, my prices should not drop more than less than 190 uh, in that year, right? So that's a use case, and if I'm inputting that as a script, it will run with every deployment so that it can capture those prices, and it can if there is a price that is lower than 190 from Toronto to New York, then my script will fail, right? This is a great business case. There might be a chance sometimes that some developer has made an error and the ticket price uh, has become either $1 or $2 sometime, right? So these use cases have happened. There were issues in the airline industry where some of the prices were really low, and that was because of a bug that was released in their deployment or release process, right? So uh, is it clear enough to understand what the use case is and what our project should be targeting at? I'm not saying you have to do the same thing. You select any use case that you want. The only three things that I really need is uh, that you that your script should run every hour and it should send you an alert, right? These are the two major things in this framework. You can do Toronto to New York, or you can data drive it from Toronto to any location, right?
Okay.
Uh, or you can do multiple locations as well,
Uh-huh.
right? So that ways, what you will be able to achieve is that you will run a standalone framework system where your script is running independently and give fetching you the results whenever it is requested or required, right? Any questions on this? No, is that simple enough project work on Selenium base uh, for you to actually implement a use case that is very much practical, right? It's pretty much practical in terms of not only the test scenarios, but for own personal use as well, right? So you can implement this and really get instant uh, price reduction alert messages on your mobile, right? All right, awesome. So I will now make the floor open for any questions that you guys have in your mind in terms of UI testing, Selenium base, or in general QA, right? So I always keep my last sessions for any Q&A rounds or discussions. So even if it's not related to testing, if it is related to industry in general, both me and Kader will try to answer those questions, right? So so do you guys have any questions?
No,
Strange, no.
looks like you are crystal clear then.
One more
Um,
thing. Yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Hi Sumit, hi Kader. I'm Hetal. Actually, I'm like applying for a job right now. So the first thing coming in my mind is like, recruiters always ask for like explaining your current project. So I'm really not getting like what the thing they are looking from my answer, like for like from testers perspective, what they actually want to know from like question like what is your current project and what are your roles and responsibilities. Can you answer that please?
Sure, sure. So the answer pretty much lies in what I showed. So what they want to understand from you is three things, right? First, you are capable of developing a framework, right? Two, you are involved in end-to-end automation of that project, right? When I say end-to-end automation, it doesn't only include testing, right? For example, when I say you automated your test scripts, but you also created something, right, in an automated way that is basically delivering those results either to the user or in or you're automating the processes as well alongside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's second important thing. The third important thing that they want to see is how much you understand the core project area, right? uh,
Okay.
I'll give you an example along with it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's assume I went into an interview where
Mm-hmm.
the requirement is uh, ETL automation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Data testing, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, what they specifically look for is what kind of data automation you have done, what kind of projects, data automation projects you have run, right?
Okay. Yep.
And then they will ask you from top to bottom, right? The implementation side of it, right? So how you started, what was your use case? So first you identify when you talk about what you're doing in the project, right? So first talk about your use case of that particular product, right? So for data testing, I can say that I'm getting, so the project is that we're getting a lot of files, different kinds of files from the clients. And
Mm-hmm.
then we are processing those files. And then we are running some AI or ML processes on those files. And then we are generating a dashboard where it's providing uh, machine learning insights to the user,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a use case, and you have to be really concise in defining your use case, right?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot define in terms of individual requirements. You have to think about the bigger picture, the whole landscape of what your product or your project is doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Okay.
start, like I explained in one line what my company is doing, right? Or what my project is doing,
Okay.
right? Once you define that, then you start talking about where are the test processes, and the test automation comes into picture, right? For example, I'll take the same case of data automation, that
Mm-hmm.
you receive the files. Now you need to check that if the files that you have received is in the right format, right? There are no
Mm-hmm.
duplicate records, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
first try to define what is your use case, and what you did to automate them,
Okay.
right? Now, once you define the use case and your uh, test uh, test phases on where your testing is placed, then you tell them what you use to test them, right?
Okay.
Now you will say, okay, I'm running a Python framework where
Mm-hmm.
it's picking up the
Okay.
data in the files, and then it's comparing with the metadata that I've stored that we were expecting, and then we compare that with the format that we have received, right? So that's one phase of testing. The second phase of testing is there can be multiple phase. One might be at the analytics level, one might be at the machine learning algorithm level. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go to the last phase. So the last phase is the web phase, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
UI testing, right? So you will say at the end of uh, at phase 4, what we do is we implement a UI testing framework where we are using Selenium base or any Selenium framework to test if the data that is generated by the analytics team is showing up in the UI correctly, right? And
Okay.
then the functionality, the workflows in the UI, right? So where customer will navigate, how customer will generate a report, how customer can view a dashboard. And then last phase of testing, you say, for example, you can say is access, right? That who can access that data? Is everyone allowed to access that data? And then you talk about how you tested that, right? So you will say that you created an automated platform where it goes through each individual user and check in the UI itself if he has access to that particular set of data or not, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
then you talk about supplementary automation, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for access, it might be user creation, right? No, test user creation, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
test data creation. Those are supplementary automation portions that you can talk about. And then you talk about where your testing fits into the whole development lifecycle, right? Like once the developer does a commit, does your automation run at that point? Does it run as a nightly regression? Does it run as a release pipeline or a build pipeline? So you
Mm-hmm.
define those things, that what things run in what development lifecycle phase, right? So for example, for commit, I will only run some sanity test, right? For nightly
Mm-hmm.
regression, I will run the whole set, right? And then in
Mm-hmm.
production, I run my monitoring tests that run every 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, I see some questions on the chat. How about their Selenium base or do I? Yes. So the first question is, how about data-driven testing using Selenium base? Yes. So you can use PyTest internal features that will drive your data test. For example, you can import library called DDT. It is specifically meant for. It's not related to PyTest. It's an add-on to the PyTest, but it's a separate library. You can use PyTest DDT to data drive your test. I have shown that example in the previous framework, but I can show it again if you are not clear. But DDD is one particular framework that we can really use. Other framework that there are multiple libraries for data-driven functionality that goes along with PyTest. So Selenium Base in itself is a plugin to a PyTest, right? It's not a solution. Uh, that is a superset of PyTest, right? It's the subset of PyTest. So you can use so the flexibility that it provides is you can use any PyTest feature along with Selenium Base, right? So you can use fixtures. A lot of DDT fixtures you can create that will help you in achieving that. And then the second question is Selenium Base handles tail exception automatically? Yes, it does. It does. The stale exception it handles automatically, or it will wait for the element to become active. Uh, and the weights are already included in whatever function you're calling from Selenium base, right? So it does handle the stale exception automatically. Can we do BDD using, as I said, you can use any PyTest framework with Selenium base. So you can use BDD. So there are uh, multiple Python PyTest frameworks. PyTest BDD is one uh, that is really neat. And then there is also a BDD framework in PyTest called Behave. So you can use that. Behave I don't recommend because the concurrency is one issue with Behave, but then it's really simple and easy to read. And then there is obviously Cucumber frameworks on PyTest that you can build on top of it. All you need to do is use Selenium base as internal functions and build your BDD library on top of Selenium base, right? Even if you build BDD library on top of it, uh, you can still utilize the same Selenium based framework in the same way that you're using now, right? So let's say you have created a Selenium based framework, but you haven't implemented BDD. In the next 3 months, uh, the requirement comes that we need a BDD framework. You can create a BDD framework and still put the same Selenium based framework to that BDD framework, right? Okay. Any other question? The BDD is one more thing that I want to talk about BDD is that BDD is a big hype in the terms of what it provides. If you uh, really want to, if you don't have a user base or you don't have three amigos concept in your company, don't use BDD, right? It will not make sense. It will only add additional layer of maintainability on top of your framework. So if no one is going inside your test framework or BDD framework to actually write anything in it, your BDD will become waste because all it will provide then is a nice reporting, right? That you can already, Selenium base already provides all those, or PyTest already provides all that functionality, right? If you're only using BDD from the reporting perspective, don't use BDD, right? Because it causes a lot of pain as an additional layer on top of your code, right? And then if your users or your business analyst or or your business is actually writing those BDD test scenarios, then use BDD. Then there is no replacement of BDD because it saves a lot of time in clarifying the requirements and putting things in place. But if you are talking only from the technical standpoint, and BDD only becomes a framework where it provides nice step-by-step reporting, you can implement that with Selenium-based framework itself. You can use LO reporting, where you can define steps as well along with the test. So it makes the maintainability really easier. But keep in mind, BDD uh, does add a lot of maintainability as an additional layer on top of your frameworks. So beware when you use this. Okay. Is there a way to manage traceability in Jira? What tool is used to maintain test cases outside from ID where your framework is an Excel document? Let's see. Okay, the way to manage traceability in Jira is by uh, buying some add-ons in Jira. Otherwise, what you have to do is uh, you'll have to uh, you will basically there is no way that you can implement uh, execution and reporting in Jira apart from either creating your own plugin in Jira or buying a plugin, right? So TestRail is Zephyr is one, TestRail is one. These are all big companies that provide these kind of add-ons to Jira, uh, so that you can do a traceability there. You can even do execution from there, right? And then you can map all your test cases inside that story to your automated execution. If you're only talking about manual test mapping, there is a way where you write your test manually and then you provide a link to your Selenium-based test, right? The other way that I recommend doing is you create another system, like we created a UI for in our last session, we created a UI for execution. You create a UI for requirement metrics as well. So what you can use is you can use Jira's API and you can use your execution UI and merge them into one platform. So you will have a UI, separate UI with the traceability from Jira stories to your execution, right? So it will give you plus your reports. So it can have your UI can have three columns. One, what story or release or deployment it relates to. You can directly fetch it from a Jira API, right? The second is second column will be your execution, what it maps to in terms of execution or your talks environment. And the third one is your reports. So the historical results of it as well, right? Another way to add traceability is through CI/CD to pipelines, right? So if you look at Jenkins or Bamboo, they will allow you to map certain Jira stories directly to either your test or your test results. I don't recommend that, but you can still do it that way. If you have a Atlassian ecosystem like Bamboo and Bitbucket and Jira ecosystem, these are all the three products by Atlassian. They have a very good ecosystem in terms of managing Bamboo plans with your Jira stories. So you can create a separate Bamboo plan and then add that to your Jira stories and execute it directly from there. But again, Bitbucket, Bamboo are not free. Even Jira is not free. Enterprise Jira is not free. But then you'll be spending for uh, three tools, right? So if that's not the case, then you have other options. But it's up to you to decide how much effort you really want to put in to create that kind of traceability. Okay. Another question is how about REST API and Auth0? Is there any method which makes it easier in SP? So Selenium base is again based on Selenium, so it's specifically for UI and not for REST API. There are two ways you can integrate a REST API or OAuth in Selenium base, but you won't need it because you are going as an actual user using the UI, right? You don't actually use REST API or OAuth authentication methods in REST API to log in, right? You use your username and password. And that's how any UI framework will allow you to do. To integrate, let's say you want a password reset, right? And there is no way other than sending a REST API call to reset that password and then use the same password in your UI test. So there are two ways to do it. Either you integrate it with the any REST API framework that we used previously, like Tavern, or you can create your a common Python function, right? As a fixture in your test or in your common function library, and you can use that as a base REST API call and use Selenium base the same way. So all you will need to do is create either another file with another function which will do that for you, but you don't need a full framework for it, because if it is only one function that you need to create, you don't need a full blown framework on REST API. You can use just simple uh, curl calls or post calls that you can use. The request library is one that you can really utilize. It's pretty straightforward. Uh, that you can use to fetch those kind of things. Any other question? You can ask questions in general as well, related to anything that is bothering you or you're seeking answers to. All right. If not, I'm
So,
available. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sumit, sorry, last maybe one last question. So, can
Sure.
Selenium base can be used for can we make like it's a single framework which can be used for web mobile API testing, for the Tavern, including everything, using the same framework? Do
So
you suggest?
here's my question to you. Why do you want to do that? Right.
Let's say example, if I take some framework like Xpremium example for the Java, using the Java language, right? So that framework is feasible for we can use for both, all web based, mobile based,
Right.
and
So
also the API.
Selenium base will allow you to do that. It will basically use the same script to run on web or mobile, depending on if you have availability on like, let's say, any cross browser testing platform, right? But if you're specifically looking for native app integration, that's not there. So even on mobile phones integration, it will run on the browser only, right? So when you talk about mobile automation, I consider that as a native mobile application and not as a browser application, right? So I can, let's say Expedia.com, right? Expedia.com you can open in your mobile through the browser or download the app, right? No framework will allow you to run web and native with the same script, because the UI is different, right? The functionality is different, the workflow is different, right? But if I talk about browsers, yes, this will run on any browser inside any uh, mobile platform, right? But when I talk about, let's say I'm running an Apple, it can I can test with the same script on Safari uh, on iPhone 10, right? But if I'm talking about Expedia app, that's not going to happen, right? Because the whole functionality is different. The whole module is different in terms of calls, right? Because it's a native application. So I can integrate in terms of using the same base as a framework and include uh, mobile testing framework as well and uh, API testing framework as well. But then I have to have the same all these three work on different platforms, right? So one is working on REST API, one is working on UI, and one is working on mobile, right? All these are three different technologies and platform, right? Even if I integrate them, there is no way one is going to communicate with another. So there is realistically no sense in integrating the three until unless there is something like you're fetching some data from mobile and then validating it either through REST API or through UI, right? In that case, also, I would not recommend integrating the three. The reason being, if you're doing that, I would ask you to store that particular information in a centralized repository or a centralized database so that anything, any framework can pick up that data, right? You don't want to make things too dependent on each other, right? Because if one thing changes, you have to put that change or push that change impacting the three frameworks together, right? So let's say tomorrow, uh, if I'm using something that is common in the three frameworks, if one of the thing becomes incompatible with, let's say, talks, then I cannot integrate all three. Then I have to take that whole module out or change the way all three are implemented,
Okay,
right?
makes sense. Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Go away. Okay. Who and how? Okay. So this is Selenium. No one validated Selenium. So okay, the question is, who who and how tested and validated SB, right? How can I trust that the SB code from the security perspective? That's what I'm assuming. Is SB using some third-party code? Okay. Selenium base is a layer on top of Selenium framework, right? It's an open source library. So when you click on any implementation of Selenium base, let's say a simple example is opening a web page, right? So it has a function called open and you provide the URL. So when you go into the reference of that function, you will find the whole code that is written behind it. And you can change that code. So that code is basically an open code. So anyone can view the code. So if there is a security concern that you want to verify, you can go into the library and look at the implementation of the code, right? And look at the imports that it is doing. So let's assume if it is even importing a third-party code or a third-party library, you will get to know what library it is using, right? So all you need to do is find the imports in that library, right? You will know if any third-party library or code is there or not. If it is there, and if it is not open source, then it is not secure, right? Because if it is not open source, I don't know what the implementation uh, of that particular method is, right? But generally, you no one will allow you to use a secure third-party code which is locked to be used in an open source project. What open source project means is you can view till the end of the chain, you can view all the code. So even if that person is using a library, that library has to be open source. So on the verification side, you can go look at all the imports that the library, SeleniumBase library is doing, and you can verify each and individual library to see if it is secure for you or not. Does that answer? So no specific person has verified it. No specific uh, no specific rating has been given to the library. It's basically up to you to do uh, that verification. An idea, is it a good idea? Is Testoper should validate and certify it? Yes, we can do that. It's a good idea. We can do that, but then we don't have a platform where we certify it, right? We can tell within our group that we certify this as a secure library, but we have no standing in the industry or a platform in the industry to say that this framework is certified, right? There is no concept of certification within the open source libraries in Python at this point, right? So even if we certify it, we are going to tell within ourselves that we are certifying it, or we can put it in a website that we certify this SeleniumBase library. But then again, we are not a recommended authority in any ways to certify that, right? There is no official stamp on it saying that we what we are saying is also the truth, right?
I mean, we can take it as a project and use our community members who are interested to test it to check if it is really working.
Yeah.
But we are not a for-profit organization where we can actually set up a lab and certify different products that are out there, right? So we are not Testoper principally.
No,
Um,
also the bigger challenge is that if you certify it once, it doesn't mean that they cannot change it later, right? So so we have to certify each and individual release as well, right? So it becomes a lot of pain.
the
Uh,
better thing is that who wants to use that product, particular open source, and he can join that open source community and contribute as a tester to make sure that the quality is good, right, of that particular open source project. That's
uh, so Kader, it's not about quality; it's about security, right? How do we make sure that this person has not embedded any code that is fetching our data from our computers, right? So that's one thing. So from the security aspect, uh, from the functionality or the features aspect, yes, you need to be either a watcher or a or contributor in order to make those changes in the library itself that will include in this specific in the next release. But you can definitely pick up this code and make your own customizations specific to your needs if you don't want to send it to as a larger Selenium base, right? You can still make changes to those that library from the perspective that there is no third party code. You have to verify it, or there are tools that basically will verify it for you. There are a lot of artifactory tools that basically analyze those libraries for security, like OWASP. OWASP 10 things that it will pick up, right? So those security tools are there. But as an individual, I have to make sure that I look at the imports and see if there is nothing fishy in that.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, it does require a lot of discussion for sure.
Yeah. I mean, see, if I have to answer it in a simple way, right? I mean, different organizations around the world is started for different reasons. If a Selenium organization is started, they started to bring in that open source for a definite benefit for that particular reason why they kind of started that particular activity, right? So now it is like someone mentioned in the comments, it is their responsibility to make sure that they have something that is not going to create an issue, right? When we are taking it and using it in our company, security issues or whatever the issue may be, quality issues or crash issues, whatever. They have to make sure what they are delivering is up to the standards that people can commercially use it. But when it comes to open source, this is the trick. The Sumit kind of explained it, right? So open source community does not, when you look at any open source community, right? There's two things you will see. One thing that you will see is there is an open source which can be used by everyone, and then there is an enterprise version of it which is sold for some dollars, right? So some of the companies take that open source and they do exactly what you are saying to make sure and guarantee things, and they sell it for price. I mean, this is a open source business as such that's out there, and they are made for it. And what we can do is, depending upon our requirement, our company where we are working, and that security whatever, can either choose to directly take the open source and use it, or ask the company to pay money to buy the enterprise version of that open source to use it, right? It's up to our decision. This is how in practice we have been doing, at least in our company, Sumit, right?
Yeah, and a lot of companies are doing that, right? Like all the cross browser testing platforms are using Selenium as their base, right? So they picked up uh, our example is Elastic, right? So a lot of people are picking up open source projects like Elastic or Selenium and then making it a managed service, right? And that's how they earn their money. So AWS uses Azure uses managed Elasticsearch. So they will ask you for the money for it, right? Same way the Selenium grid implementation, cross browser testing, browser stack. They're all using it, right, as their base. But then they're giving you a managed service, right? Managed grid, which you don't have to be worried about. So that was they make sure that everything is in order, everything is complied by the governance and from the security perspective as well. Uh, but yeah, as I'm not sure the full name, but as SD said, it needs a bigger discussion.
O-
Uh,
Okay, so like first of all, like let me congratulate you. Like this is my first session I joined this Traceoper. I watched like videos like on a YouTube, like all those sessions, and it's hard to find the exact timestamp. Today, fortunately, I was able to. It's impressive and good job you guys are doing. But like, okay, like we are in IT industry and we need to understand one thing. If it's free or like open source, it doesn't mean like it's good to use, right? Like
Correct.
that's not an option we can have, right? Like when we are in IT, we need to have like we need to know like nuts and bolts, right?
Right.
And another thing is like, okay, as an individual, like nobody has that time to like validate or test like or see through the whole like the whole set of like a whatever the code there is, right? It's next to impossible when you're following some like deadlines and whatnot. And most of the time what happens, like if you are working in any company and if you are the person who try to introduce some kind of automation, then like they're not going to give you any kind of money to like have like a kind of like an enterprise solution, right?
Right.
So you need to rely on those like open source codes, right? But at the same time you need to be very make sure like whatever the code you're going to use is like authorized or like someone is certified. Unfortunately, in the testing world, I didn't see anything there, any kind of organization or any like a kind of like anything which can certify, okay, this code is good enough, right? We cannot like certify 100%. Nobody can guarantee any code in the world like which is like any bug free, right? If there is a bug free code, then we are not exist, right, as a QA. So that's not going to happen. So like I don't know, like if nobody's done that, like why can't the Traceoper can do that, right? Maybe
Uh,
we can have some kind of project which can work in this direction, and maybe like it's I agree, like it can be a separate and big like a project, and maybe we can discuss like for like at some other time. This is not a kind of like as I told you, like it's not like a good platform at this moment, right? And the audience, so
no, it's a
maybe
great idea. As I said earlier, it's a great idea. There are some hiccups on implementation of this idea, but then we can have discussions on it and see what we can do about it or where it can lead us to. So definitely, it's a good thought process. Uh, Good idea. Let's take it further and have a separate discussion on this when the time permits, or we can set up something separately than a Wednesday session to discuss just on this. Right? So
Yeah, the only thing I don't know the process, like, because this is my first test and I don't know much about the twist topper, like but by accident I come to know about twist topper, and I was like, when I first time heard by the Selenium base, and I was interested in, and then I was gets in there. I don't know what kind of process you guys are having. Are you guys like
Sanjay,
creating some kind of backlogs?
yeah,
So
Sanjay, a quick question for you, right?
yeah.
Which company do you work for, and what do you work at?
I'm a QA analyst, and I work for Ontario MD.
Okay, awesome.
And like it's a kind of a healthcare, and usually like we are working with the Ministry of Health.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, Sanjay, I know that you also sent me and Sumit the email, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was reading through that, and just to give you a perspective, right? First of all, Testoper is a non-profit organization, okay? And then the second thing is it is run by a bunch of volunteers like you and me and everyone in this call, right? It is basically run by the people for the people to help the people to really learn and fulfill their career, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship aspirations, right? So this is what the Testoper is all about. Like Sumit is one of the community member, and he came up with some topics, and he is training the other people who are learning from him. And tomorrow, someone from our team can do the same thing, reaching out to us. So that's what is the Testoper community is all about. But now what does it focuses? It focuses three things, right? By the name you will see, testoper developer, OPER, testoper TEST tester, and OPER operations. So we basically focus on the skills that are required to be developed on these three areas through different programs that we do, right? That will basically help you to go through step by step. We are still defining. We are a small organization. We just started now, running by volunteers. We are clearly defining right now what are all the different steps that we are going to take you through, all the way from getting a job all the way to become very successful in your career as a future workforce, right? So all those things are under development. But long story short, it's a community run by the community people for the betterment of the community to learn on these three aspects. That's all it is, and it's a non-profit.
Yeah, yeah. I really, it's very impressive, and I think this is not like a good platform to discuss
yep,
all of
yep.
these
So
things, because
we'll set
maybe
it. Yeah,
we are boring other people, right?
right, right.
No, no,
So
no.
we
It's actually
no, no, no,
good
no.
that I got
Yeah,
I got an opportunity to explain again what is a test over to everyone,
yeah.
right?
I guess
But
Kadir keeps waiting for such kind of questions so that he can.
but we'll take it offline, Sanjay. You can always reach out to us. You can. I'm not sure you are in the teams or not. If you're not, you can send the email ID in this chat. Our team members can add you into this Teams channel, so you have access to all the channels we have, presentations we have, and links and everything you have, right? And then we will chat through the Microsoft Teams ideas and brainstorm and see how we can improve and different things that we can do moving forward.
Yeah, the only thing I was interested, like I was just curious about like, whether if you guys are creating some kind of backlogs. I don't know whether you guys have using like DevOps and boards or not.
We
But
have,
like
yeah.
if you guys are using like a boards or something, then maybe like whatever the backlog, like everyone can see, and maybe like even like if we are moving forward with the project or something, then we can go forward from there, right?
So
Thank
you
you.
mean backlog from the point of view of what? Let me understand.
So, okay, okay. Backlog means like, okay, see, it's a kind of first step for it's kind of gathering a requirement, you can say. Like, I don't know whether you are acquainted with the
So
DevOps
so
boards or not.
we so
E-
so
e-
I'll answer you. I'll answer you. So we do have backlogs and boards, but it's not for participants. It's for test support as a group, right? In terms of who is volunteering. So definitely we do that. We don't have a backlog where we are floating boards to general public. So we don't have that as of now. We don't intend to do that. Because the only task that are listed there are being done by volunteers, right? And not the participants.
Yeah, I do understand that. That's
Right.
fine. But the
So
only my like purpose was like if we are tracking those kind of things or not. Like
right,
I don't
right.
know
So
if we
we
are
will.
doing it, then
Yep.
we should do that.
So we
Correct.
have a team, right? Volunteer team, like Smith was mentioning. It is run by we always put forth and request people whoever are attending if they wanted to join and volunteer in Testoper community to help other people, right? Like how me and Sumit are helping with on this particular session. So likewise, we have a lot of volunteers who have joined us together, and we have formed a group. And we normally have a meeting once in a week, and in that group, we basically decide backlogs and everything, right? We have different teams, marketing programs, all our volunteer teams, and we run the show, whole show run by those volunteers. And of course, if any one of you are interested to join in one of the groups
Right.
to contribute as a volunteer, you're welcome.
So to just give you a perspective, right? So we have a DevOps volunteer team as well, where we are trying to float an open source project from Testoper itself, right? So what I would say is, let's add this idea to our boards, and we will get back to you on the inclusion in the volunteers team, and then whatever your interest is, we'll take it down from there, right? And from the larger perspective, we'll keep the Wednesdays for the training sessions. And in the side, we are running a lot of projects, right? So we are running hackathons. We are running multiple DevOps projects. So I'm pretty sure since it's your first day, you don't have visibility into those projects. But once you are inside the Teams app, you will be able to see a lot of things that are happening.
Yes, yes, and thank you,
And
like yeah,
yep,
for those insights. And like I really don't think like QA is not like nowadays. Like QA should have a like their expand the skill set. Like right now, like until now, like QA is more ever kind of manual testing and like different
correct,
kind of
correct,
testing. And like now, it's automation is there, but it's not enough. Like now, like QA should have enough knowledge for the DevOps too, right?
correct, correct.
Because the future, if you cannot have those skills, you won't survive.
Right, right. And
And the
that's what
tech,
we are trying to, and that's what we are trying to provide to the whole community, the next level of knowledge that will be required to become a test operator, right? So because
yeah.
testing and operations are coming together, testing and development is coming together. So we need to understand the whole landscape rather than just being a QA analyst. So that's what we are trying to provide with different tools, different frameworks. Even if you look at these frameworks that we are providing training on, it all includes the DevOps integration, right?
Very, very impressive initiative, and you guys are doing like excellent. Thank you.
All right.
Perfect. All
Thank you
right,
so
guys.
much.
Yeah, so let's close the session, Sumit.
And
Guys,
yeah, one more thing. And in the next session, we'll be starting with the robot framework. So if
you are taking it or Arjit is taking it? Have you had a conversation?
I did have a conversation with him. It's probably will both take together,
Okay.
but Arjit will be doing the main lead. If he's not available, then I'll pick it up from where he left.
Okay, perfect. As long as you guys are in sync, I'm good.
Yep.
Perfect. And you guys enjoy the evening. Have a great night, and talk to you guys on Saturday if you are attending the Saturday session or next week. As usual, I keep asking you guys, spread this to your friends, colleagues, come and join and take benefit of all these free programs that we are providing. Also help us to promote us to your organization who can sponsor us, because we need money to pay for all these tools that we are using to help you guys to grow, right? So that will also be very much appreciated. Thanks a lot for joining, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye and good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.